Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fired Up, the podcast for marketers working in early and late stage startups. I'm Morgan McClintock, the CEO of startup marketing agency Firebrand. We've launched this podcast to interview the best in the business, but I'm not going to do it alone. So please meet my co-hosts.
I'm Nicole Pytel, Firebrand's VP of Content Marketing.
And I'm Chris Ulbrich, Firebrand's Head of Media Relations.
I'm Ian Lipner, a tech PR and crisis communications veteran.
We'll drop a new episode each week, so there's plenty of fuel for your marketing fire. Get the spark you need to take your startup to a whole new level. Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Fired Up. I'm back. Been on vacation for the last couple of weeks. Thanks to the team for stepping in on the hosting duties. I went to Denmark. Have you been? Great country, great country. It's very flat, right? So there's lots of cycling. They cycle everywhere, which is wonderful. They have amazing food. We went to Copenhagen. It's got beaches. You walk down the street and you're on the beach and you're in the center of this wonderful city. Everyone very friendly. Everyone looks amazing. What a great country that is. Everything works. So it's clean and wonderful. So I had a really good time with some family and friends in Denmark. So highly recommend that. But today we are going to talk about account-based marketing, and more specifically, how do you start with this, right? You know, there are the big platforms, demand-based, we love them, 6 Sense, etc. But often for an earlier stage startup, those things can be complex, they can be expensive, and you're just not ready. But you do want to take some steps to go on that journey towards ABM. So today we're going to be speaking to Ajay Khanna. He's the CMO of Mezmo, and he's been doing ABM for a number of years at various different companies, and he's used the big platforms, but he's also helped build the tooling with other platforms to start to deliver an ABM motion. So we're going to talk to him about specifically, hey, which products did you use? How did you integrate them? How do you report on the work that you do? What challenges do you face? Because I think for earlier stage companies, seed A, maybe B, this is where we're at when it comes to ABM. And getting that right will help set you up for a more dedicated platform down the line. So let's call in Ajay Khanna, the CMO of Mezmo. Ajay, great to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing good, Morgan. How are you doing?
I am great. Now, today we're going to be talking about getting started with ABM, and I know you've got a lot of experience in this. So thanks for taking a little bit of time to talk to us about it today. Top of the show, perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about your journey with ABM.
Absolutely. And it's a pleasure to be here and share some of my experiences and my learnings with ABM. I have been working with various forms of ABM. And again, ABM is not one thing, right? For last maybe 7-8 years. And some of them have been platform, and some of them approaches have been without a particular platform in place. Some were successful, some were not that successful. So I think throughout various companies, last 4 or 5, I've been working with different forms of ABM, with products, without products, and seeing what makes sense in a particular case, right? For marketing to be successful as well as for sales to be successful. But first thing first, I generally don't like the term ABM because it points to marketing, that it is marketing thing, that it is account-based marketing, right? And a lot of time that really doesn't convey the complete scope of the whole initiative. So sometimes we have also used the term ABX, or even better ABR, right? Accounts-based revenue. So because it's a shared initiative across marketing, sales, inside sales, and growth teams. So definitely I always take that approach of ABR than ABM.
Yeah, that's a good distinction, I think, because one of the fundamental parts of this is that it's a collaboration with sales, and we like to think about it as ABM, but that interface is really important. So having done this over the last 7 or 8 years, what did you really learn from this experience? And particularly I'm interested in the things that didn't work. Not to dive in on the negative, but...
No, it's important, right? Because over the years, you have those learnings, right? And you bring those learnings with you for the next time you are doing it. So if I think certain situations where it did not work that well, one of the things that I am now cautious about is that not to bring ABM too early. For example, if you are like you are a startup, right? You are in the business in last maybe like 4 years into your business, you are still like a sub 10 million ARR or revenue. Be cautious of really jumping into ABM approach. And the reason being that there's nothing wrong with the platform. There is nothing wrong with the approach in itself. But as a company, you're still learning. You're still learning about your ICP. You're still experimenting with your persona. You're still experimenting with your messaging. You're still experimenting with the repeatable sales motions. And if those pieces are not there, then platform is not necessarily going to help you, right? You want to know your ICP, you want to know your persona, you want to have enough sales to kind of like really have that repeatable motion. So that is definitely something that I learned, that we need to have those core fundamental pieces in place before we jump into account-based marketing or account-based revenue programs. Secondly, or maybe third, is that it takes resources. So yes, there are platforms out there, but be cautious that it will need resources from people perspective. So if you have like maybe 3 or 4 people in marketing in initial stages, right, or even 5 or 6 people in marketing, you may not have enough resources to really manage your ABM program and your ABM platform. It needs dedicated resources, both on execution side of like digital, as well as on the operational side. So that is another thing to kind of like really keep in mind, that do you have committed resources? ABM platform is not a part-time job. Let's be very clear on that. It will need a dedicated resource. And then also, do you have enough budgets to do digital spends, right? Because you will need experimentation. You will need to put money for LinkedIn ads or Google ads or Facebook ads or wherever you want it to be, because that's where you're optimizing. And do you have enough budgets for that? If not, think twice about automating your ABM capabilities. And of course, you will be, or you may be enamored by these whole ideas that, okay, yeah, ABM tool will help me find lookalikes and I can find the right accounts and the right opportunities before my competitors and bring it to the sales and we will win all those deals. That is true. But you need to have certain critical mass of data before that. If you only have closed like 5 deals and you have like 3 million ARR or 10 million, not even 10 million ARR, they will not be lookalikes because all of them will be different accounts and different ICP, different persona, and different sales motions. So those things work at a certain volume. And that is the thing that I want to kind of like really focus on, is that have the critical volume, understand your ICP, understand your persona, understand your repeatable sales motion, have a dedicated resource, and then you want to jump into a platform. But that does not mean that you cannot do ABM. There are still different approaches to figure out ABM, and we can cover that as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. So just to sort of recap, it's easy to get enamored with an ABM platform, a sixth sense, a demand base, what have you. And they are great for the right kind of business, but they could be over complex for the business at your stage because you don't have the resources, you don't have the ad in terms of people to manage the platform, you don't have the data to feed into it, you don't have the ad budget, and you don't have enough certainty about who you're going to go after to get a repeatable, sort of scalable sale. And so you might not be ready for that. But ABM is a journey, and you can start that journey without the platform. And you can start targeting particular accounts. You can certainly target them on LinkedIn, or Google Ads with a custom list. Like, there are things you can do to ready yourself for ABM before you take the leap to have a full-blown platform. So I like the advice about, hey, don't grab it first, but you can take some steps. And I know that you've done that, right? You were like, I think even one of your businesses, they had the platform maybe when you came in and you're like, okay, we're not ready, and you took a step back and built pieces of it from other tooling. And so Talk to us a little bit about what are the components of that, and if you can name names of specific tools, what did you use?
Going back to what you stated, right? The core idea of ABM is to know your accounts, right? To really get to know your accounts and get to know the intent and get into that account at the right time. So how can we do that without a platform, right? So first of all, like having that understanding as well as approach in the organization that all the team members, whether those are SDRs or sales or marketing, that we all need to know our accounts inside out, right? So what do I mean by that? We have accounts, for example, in Salesforce, we use Salesforce. And for automation, we use HubSpot. And we have accounts in there. And then we collect leads through like digital, through Google, through webinars, through events. And then those leads are doing activities with us and we are doing lead scoring. And then we are building contacts by pulling lists from Zoom or from Apollo or Discover, right? Whatever your choice is. But how can I connect all the dots and say that which account is really bubbling up for me? Can I do that manually? And I'm saying that, yes, you can do that manually, right? So there are like things that I have discussed with the team and put in place is that, okay, we have all this lead scoring going on. We have all these contacts going on. First of all, we need to make sure that all of them are connected to the account. And then how can we really roll up lead scoring to add to become an account scoring, right? And sometimes, HubSpot can do it for you, but we did it on our own. We put together our own algorithms for lead scoring and rolling them up to make it an account scoring. And second thing is that really understand your accounts, right? Who are your tier 0 accounts that you really want to go after and provide that white glove service with like personalized content, personalized SDR engagement? What is the list for your tier 1 accounts? What is the list of your tier 2 accounts? Are they organized vertically? Are they organized by use cases? Are they organized demographically? Are they organized technographically, right? So how are you really organizing your accounts? So know your accounts and what is their engagement. And then you can start putting other pieces together, right? So that once I have this account scoring, then I can also get intent data. So you can get intent data, whether it is from Bombora, from other tools. We'll chat what I'm using as well. But then that intent data or that intent score becomes part of your account scoring. Then you need to see that who are the people from a particular account visiting your website, right? So that is another signal. So now there are signals happening. I don't have a platform, but I know these signals are happening. I'm meeting a person from this particular company at like RSA event. I'm meeting, this person is downloading from the same company from my LinkedIn, this person downloading this stuff or attending my webinar, and this particular same company is showing high intent in this particular product, which I'm monitoring now. How can we put this thing together for salespeople, for SDR to say, okay, every week, first thing on Monday morning, you go and see the score. You go and see this intent. And if this guy is or this company is not on your account list to follow, you better have a good reason why you're not following up on this account, right? So those things are there. Tools are really good. And I've seen really good results about really identifying those accounts, putting them in tiers, and then have a strategy of further engagement that this is like one-on-one account. You're going to make like one-on-one calls with them, reaching out using various channels. But these are like tier 1 accounts based on demographics or technographics or industry. We are going to put them in a nurture sequences and really engage with them that way. And if third, they are going to be like in like normal nurture cycles. So you can really operationalize this account-based strategy by understanding who are your top accounts, how are they engaging with you, and compared to others, how you are prioritizing those. And then what are the next best actions that you can take for those accounts?
So you mentioned there lead scoring is fundamental to this. And I know that HubSpot has its own lead scoring tool within there, and you can sort of engage an ABM capability within HubSpot. But you said that you built your own algorithm and you're integrating intent data from Bombora into that score. Just unpack that for me a little bit.
One of the challenge that working with Salesforce is that in Salesforce, leads are not connected to accounts, right? So there is a notion of lead, there is a notion of contact, there is a notion of account and opportunity. And lead is this something which is hanging on its own. Account has like contacts, accounts as opportunity. But then there is this nifty little tool which has been there for a long time, and I've used it always, Lean Data, right? Which helps you really do this account matching with lead and can connect leads to your accounts and then give you a way to really roll up that lead scoring and make it an account scoring, right? So even though we are using the model in HubSpot for all the lead scorings, of course, we are building our own, but it is within HubSpot. Lead scoring happens within HubSpot, but we are bringing all that information in Salesforce and rolling up to make it an account score. And then what we also have for intent pieces, we have Apollo, which gives us the intent for various organization. It is also helping us with list building as well as our sequences of engagement. So we use that. And then for our website visits, we are using Lead Feeder. I think that company has changed the name to Dealfront, but they have been there for a while, right? And these companies have been there for a long time, and they do a really good job of really bringing that intent signals. And for example, Apollo even tells me which keywords people use to search and really kind of like coming to your website kind of a thing, right? So you can get to the keyword level. So which is really interesting. Then everything is rolled up into HubSpot and into Salesforce.
Thank you for that. You're using lean data to connect leads in Salesforce to contacts and accounts and opportunities. You're using Apollo to enrich the data anyway, and also to provide the intent data. And for those that don't know, the intent data is when people are typing in keywords and coming to your account, typing in keywords from a particular account, they're sort of surging, and you're trying to use those keywords to sort of indicate whether they're in market or they're not. And then you're using Lead Feeder to do the reverse IP lookup to kind of go, okay, people from this company are coming to our website. And does that still work when people are working remotely from home, or has that impacted it at all?
It has impacted that a lot, but you get the information which you get, right? And between Apollo and the Lead Feeder, I think we can make a good determination on which accounts are kind of like becoming red hot accounts for us. So getting like signals from there and getting some, maybe I'm not getting all of them, but some of them from that company is coming in, and I can kind of like really make that, have that conversation with my BDR team that, okay, what are we doing for this particular account? Because I see all this activity around that.
Right. And then you're using those signals and you're adding some custom fields into HubSpot's lead scoring model that it has at the points plus and minus that it has to then sort of trigger the certain threshold that will then trigger the sequences in Apollo or follow up from the sales team or whatever action they might take.
Yes. And all that reporting kind of like gets into Salesforce, where I'm kind of like monitoring everything in Salesforce. Yeah.
Were there any challenges with the plumbing? I mean, they all sort of link into HubSpot, I guess, or is it top level? I imagine they all work together, but in practice, does it break? How does that work?
They more or less work together, because I think there is most of the ecosystem will work with HubSpot and Salesforce, right? So they generally work together, but also shout out to our like amazing revenue operation guy, right? Jeff Ronaldi. I mean, he's amazing. So he definitely understands these processes, understands the data model, and really understand these platforms inside out. So definitely there was some work to put everything together, but it is doable.
Okay. So you either need a Jeff Rinaldi. I don't know how scalable that he is, but they should work out of the box. They probably don't. So you need a RevOps person in-house on your team, or at least a consultant who can kind of come in and sort of do the plumbing. You've got it to work with these different components. Why is this better than choosing an out-of-the-box Rollwork 6 Sense tool?
For me, right? And again, different marketing leaders will have different approach to this whole ABM stuff. If we are kind of like in a certain stage, right? So if you're already doing like 50 million, 100 million revenue, then definitely by all means kind of like put this thing together. And I would highly recommend that you do it, because you will see a lot of success in there as well. But on the early stages, it is better to have a hands-on approach, because first of all, you yourself are learning, right? You are learning who's your ICP. You are learning, still figuring out what your persona looks like. Is it one persona? Is it two persona that you are selling it to. What is the difference between user persona and the buyer persona? Then itself takes time, right? Because a lot of time we build everything for a user persona and think that user persona is the same as the buyer persona. And then after like 6 months, a year down the line, you figure out, no, that person has no buying authority. Buying is happening somewhere else. So those things take time to figure out, right? And then when you are learning, when you are really educating in this cycle, outside platform, I feel will be faster because yes, you can feed everything into the platform and have machine learning take over. But guess what? Your ML algorithms takes 4 to 6 weeks to learn. Even if you are putting together any platform, ABM, they will say that, okay, you have provided us with all these ICP, persona, titles, roles, keywords, and everything, and leave us alone for like 4 weeks, and we will optimize, and then you run. And guess what? By the time your ICP has changed, your persona has changed, your product has changed, and you go back and do that, it will be just painful at that point, right? If you are in that stage where you do not have your repeatable sales motion really figured out, your sales plays really figured out, your ICP persona really figured out, focus on your account and learning about your accounts rather than putting an ABM platform.
When you rolled this out, we're a company that's going to start doing account-based revenue. We're going from our prior go-to-market motion where, we're selling into a particular vertical, what have you. You start with a pilot, right? You can't do it for all your accounts. Some of the accounts are sort of on a traditional, motion, and some are in this pilot. And so when you're working with the sales team, how do you convince them to do this? And is one, we've peeled off one SDR or like a couple of the sales team to sort of be part of the pilot and the rest are doing the traditional motion that we've been doing before. How did you address that? Because you've got sort of 1 foot in and 1 foot out, or do you have to kind of fully commit?
All of the above, Morgan. I have gone through all of those phases. And in one of the situations, we said that, okay, let's put together this ABM approach. And what we are going to do is we are going to kind of we have this SDR team of like 6 SDRs. And we will pick 3 of them and they will dedicate 50% or 60% of their time to this ABM approach. And what we are going to do is for these 3 SDRs, we're going to assign 3 AEs. And all those 3 AEs, they will give us like their top 5 accounts that they want to get into. Having that account mindset, that, for example, I have like top 7 out of top 10 pharma company as my customers. We have like really well built out pharma play. And I want to get into next 3 of them or next 4 of them. So that's a really good approach, right? Or that situation to do an AB and that, okay, I need to get into Merck and Pfizer and Sanofi because the rest everybody I have. In that situation, I know my play, I know my market, I know my user. And then I said, okay, this is the user base. This is our play. This is like very specific message. And then these sales SDRs will be dedicated to kind of like get into those accounts. So that is kind of like getting first buy-in from sales that, okay, we are going to help you to get into these accounts, set up meetings. And we set up meetings, we set up as sales, and when we are done, then we are off to the next account. We are going to spend like 4 weeks. And if we are not able to make it to the 4 weeks, we'll pick the next 5 accounts. That was like step number 1. And then later on, when you can like really see this thing and you are at a 50, 70 million plus revenue, you are bringing the platform in. At that point, you have to make a call. Sales need to be all in. So you cannot straddle this boat of like, are we doing MQLs or are we doing like this account qualified or qualified accounts?
MQA, yeah.
You are kind of like in this whole MQL world or you are in like qualified accounts world. So doing both is tricky. So you have to commit to one. So there's a lot more risk and there's a lot more buy-in that needs to happen from sales teams. But if the sales teams have gone through that process of they're coming from an organization who has gone through that process, generally they are like really accepting of that. One good example, it's coming to my mind and I'm sharing it because it's a public known story is even at Reltio, right? So they were awarded by Forrester for their account-based marketing program. And the operation teams and the growth team, the demand gen team did an amazing job to put that whole program together. But they made a commitment that, okay, no more MQLs. We are only going after qualified accounts. And then you have situations where you have different types of products, right? One type of product is very kind of like PLG approach. People are taking kind of like free trial, and then from the free trial, they start using the product. And from that product, you want to convert them into contract customer. So how does that kind of like aligns with your ABM strategy? So you have to then do a hybrid approach that, okay, what kind of accounts and what kind of tiers lead you into ABM and what kind of tiers lead you into like normal sales cycle kind of a thing. So that matching you have to do.
Right. If you're going to sort of product qualified leads and up into it, you're trying to go from product growth into it.
So there are MQLs or PQLs or qualified accounts and mix of match. And again, sometimes it depends on different products, right? Different products team, different approaches within an organization.
Right. So that's definitely one of the challenges is sort of how do you work with the sales team? How do you run the pilot and prove it out before you take the plunge and kind of go all in on this? And it's going to vary by the maturity of the business, but also the motion, if you're product led, that's going to be very different. What other challenges, when you've implemented this before, have you encountered that you maybe didn't expect until you got there?
Yes. So I think some of the challenges are very common to any kind of change, right? So it is, first of all, buy-in, right? And you will get quick buy-in because, of course, everybody wants qualified accounts, right? So whether it's marketing and sales, so buy-in is not that big of a problem, but the problem is the commitment, following the processes, the part of like discipline, and those things that you have to stick with it for a while. And I think that is another key thing that ABM approach, again, you have to stick with it for like at least kind of like 8, 9, 10 months kind of a thing. Otherwise, you will not have those understanding and you will see like some initial wins. Maybe you got out of like 5 or 10 accounts, you will see like 1 success story, 2 success story, but that is kind of like anecdotal, right? That is not a program. The success of the program depends when you can say that, okay, whenever I put like 20 accounts, I can win like 30% of them. That repeatability, that happens maybe like 9 to 10 months into the program. So that commitment is there. And then definitely, as I said, that challenge will be that if you go the platform route, where I've seen success as well, but that needs dedicated resources and dedicated budget, not just for the platform, but for your digital spend, as well as people who will be managing that platform.
Right. With the approach, the initial approach, you're still advertising, right? You're not using the network of 6 Sense or Demand Basis network. You're uploading your accounts up into LinkedIn and the contacts or, Google ads or whatever. So there is still some ad spend, but, when you get a dedicated platform, you can do those and they have their own network. And so you end up, the ad spend sort of kicks up to the next level.
Exactly. So if you don't have like resources and a budget to spend at that level, then it might not deliver those kind of results, right?
We're going to need to commit to this over the long haul. It sounds like it's relatively straightforward to get the initial buy-in, but, you've got to sustain it over time and you can see some pieces of success, but is that, a scalable thing? So talk to me a bit about how you measure the success of ABM. And you mentioned reporting earlier. You pulled together different tools here. How did you build the dashboard?
So I think success is always, at the end of the day, it is how much revenue you are generating and how much of that revenue is attributed to this particular program, basically meaning that how many opportunities and what is the volume as well as dollar amount of opportunities that are being added to the sales pipeline, right? At the end of the day, that will be your measure. Plus, another interesting one is sales cycle, because the whole concept of ABM is that you are getting into a particular sales deal at the right time or early enough that you can influence that deal, or because you are working through that intent, right? So that is the idea. So in concept, that should reduce your sales cycle because that company has already started searching for it. They're already searching for solutions. They already have identified the problems. That means that they are ready to do something about it. Maybe they already have budget. So you are not doing that much convincing about the problem, right? Or your solution. So they are already working towards that. So your sales cycle should be low. So I think those are the things that you can start monitoring. For sure, the sales pipeline that is being added, but also is that impacting your sales cycle as well? Because it should. So I think that is part one. And then if we see like the metrics, then definitely how many of your accounts are becoming your sales ready accounts, right? Qualified accounts kind of a thing. And how is your account scoring working? What are the various activities that are contributing to that particular account scores? And then how soon those qualified accounts are getting into these pipelines. So I think those are the things that you will measure on an ongoing basis. And that will be your dashboard. So for now, I mean, my dashboard has everything in it. It has like MQLs, it has the scoring for accounts, and it has the opportunities that we are creating and the attribution that where are these opportunities coming from all different lead sources, but also rolling up to give the complete view of the account that, okay, this account has so many leads, so many contacts, so many activities. This is the intent, and this is the kind of contact and activity and opportunities across that account. So building that whole thing, that is something that that everyone has to do.
Right. And just in a very tactical sense, this dashboard, how have you built this? Is this a Google Sheet? Is this a Looker dashboard? Is this in Domo? How have you done that?
Primarily, most of these pieces are in Salesforce.
Okay.
But, right? There are like, because one of our sales motion is also through free trials, right? And one of the key things with trial is how to really get product engagement. Maybe that's a topic for another day, but how to really kind of like understand product engagement and bring that engagement back into leads, back into accounts to see that this particular account, 10 leads from this particular account are doing a free trial, and 5 of them registered and 4 of them really built this thing and 3 of them deployed this thing. You are monitoring that. So how to bring all that information back as part of your account understanding, as part of your lead understanding, and roll it up there. So having that information available, capture, whether you're doing with Pendo, whether you're doing with Intercom, whether you're doing with, there are like other product application.
An amplitude, a mix panel, any kind of product.
Mix panel, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're bringing that thing in. And for those, we are using that and bringing that information back to reports like preset kind of a thing to kind of like do that. But I also make sure that all that information flows back into Salesforce and HubSpot so that I can click through and see that engagement inside the product for an account.
Right. I love that. I love that. So you've got a free trial motion and you are using Pendo or whatever to kind of have certain milestones. Have they created an account? Have they taken a particular action? Have they, that shows engagement, and you are then scoring that and adding that into your lead scoring, your account scoring model to say, okay, look, 4 of the people here are engaged in the product. They've got past milestone 3, which means they've built this thing and they've created a task or whatever they've done. Right. Okay.
That is the crux of ABM, right? To pull all this information together, whether it is at event, whether it is inside the product, whether it's on the webinar, and roll it up and bubble up an account which is ready for some action, right? Whether you're using manual pieces to connect these things, or you're using a platform at a certain point in time, you would want to use a platform to do all these things. But at the end of the day, this is what you want to bring all this information together, connect the dots for your sellers so that they can have a very relevant and engaged conversation with the prospect.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what is the next sort of phase of this? Of course, one of the next step is, hey, we go for a full-fledged system. I think that one's obvious. But does this sort of roll out now we push into other verticals, or we add in other tools hey, you mentioned we're using Apollo, but maybe we move up to Bombora. I don't know. What does the next phase look like?
Definitely make the engagement a lot more automated based on verticals as well as technographic data kind of a thing, so that even if you're doing, for example, automated engagement, whether it is using Apollo or even nurtures within HubSpot, you're having a lot more relevant focused conversation with various leads for a particular account. That is one part of it. And other part is, again, I'm kind of like dabbling with is something around A/B testing on the websites, right? So really understanding who is doing what and what works but doesn't work on the website. And third would be something like personalization on the website, right? So that is the kind of like not ultimate goal, but where I want to go is that when we know really well about our account and what they're looking for, what their industry, what their technographics is. So next time when they come to the website, we present to them a very relevant information, and that personalization of the website is something that I will tackle next to kind of like connect these pieces together,
Right. I mean, you're really getting into it there. If you say, hey, I recognize that through Lead Feeder, it's this company and they're a healthcare company. And here's my healthcare homepage with my healthcare use cases and specific integrations that we do for those kinds of companies. You can use the tokens to do that. But that really is starting to get pretty sophisticated. But you can do it with HubSpot. I mean,
you can do it. I think you can do kind of like get this information and push that information. And there are like personalization tools out there for the website personalization. I think something we can explore. But yes, kind of like understanding what does their current stack look like, their technographic information. Are they kind of like Google Cloud or AWS, or they're on Snowflake, or what kind of integrations do they have? What kind of tools they're using? For example, in like DevOps, are they using Dynatrace? Are they using Datadog? Are they using Splunk? Are they using Honeycomb? And what kind of other pieces that they have? And then what should we present in that situation? If we are kind of, for example, a telemetry pipeline company, what should be our message on which page they should land on?
Right.
If we know all this thing about them. So I think that is something that I would hope to tackle next.
Some people are saying the ABM is dead. It's been around for a long time. We've just talked about how much work it is to kind of change this whole thing. And sure, you might, increase the deal velocity and deal size, et cetera, but it's complex, and does it really convert? What do you say to that? Is ABM dead?
we always have these conversations about various technologies. And it was funny that like 15 years back, I worked for, I think it was 15 or something around that, I worked for a company called Khanna, and there was this whole thing that email is dead. Email is not dead, right?
It's completely dead.
It's still not.
Sometimes we might wish it would die.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I don't see that ABM is dead or not dead. I think we have customers, we call them accounts, and we need to know about them. We need to know what they want, and we need to kind of like engage with them at the right time, right? At the end of the day, it all comes down to that, right? So it is ABM platforms are not a magical solution. I mean, you have to have that expectation, right? That, okay, what are you going to get out of this whole program or a platform, right? So if you understand that part and set your expectations that, okay, whether it is a platform or without a platform, I need to understand my accounts. I need to understand my ICP. I need to understand my persona. I need to have repeatable pattern. And then I need to provide them with the information that is very relevant to them, whether it is through ads, through emails. And that's all this thing is doing, right? And that is just the basic of marketing. Even Kotler says that, right? So
yes, that's right. That's right.
Whether it's 4 Ps, it will come down to that.
Part of the promotion, yeah.
it will just come back to that, right? So that is the core fundamental, right? And then, of course, these platforms will evolve with such a amazing stuff happening around AI, ML. Of course, we need to mention that. Otherwise, this podcast will not be complete if you don't mention LLM, maybe.
Yeah, you got to drop it in there.
But that interesting stuff is happening, right? Whether it is all those conversations on the website, whether it is enabled by intercom kind of like products, or even like further along, if you deploy some kind of like chatbots, which are like very automated. And there have been products like that, like Conversica in the past. And I think now they are even will get more. I've not used that in a while, but it may get better in time in having those conversations. So it is exciting time that how these things are coming. So it will evolve. It will become new engagement platform or whatever. But as we said, that bottom line is that you need to know your customers and you need to give them what they want at the right time in the channel of their choice.
And so what final, as we sort of wrap up here, what other advice would you give to startups who are sort of at that early stage, embarking on their ABM, given that you've done this over the last 8 years, I'm just about to do it. What advice do you give me?
Get your fundamentals in place, right? So if you are kind of like a sub 10 million ARR revenue, I don't think you should be focusing on platform kind of approach because it will distract you. It will take a lot of resources that you are ready to commit at this point and budget. Focus your energies on learning. I'll keep on repeating your ICP, your persona, your use cases, your sales plays. And once you have those things in place and you're confident that you know your market, you have that product market fit, you have reached that critical mass, you have reached that critical revenue, then start thinking about your platform. But you need to know your account and your market really well before you start feeding that data into ABM, because ABM is not going to do a magic on its own because it is based on data. If you don't have data, it's not going to do anything for you. So have your data, have your understanding, and then let it do its magic, but you need to have all those bases first.
Great advice. Our next section is called Fired Up 5, and this is our quick fire round. I'm going to ask you a few quick questions. It's a bit more personal, and you can give me short answers. So first up, if you weren't in marketing, what would you do?
I started as an engineer and spent a lot of time in engineering as a mechanical engineer, so actual physical manufacturing engineering, and then software engineering as well. And then I spent time in product management. So yes, I think if I was not in marketing, I would be somewhere in engineering or product management kind of like place. Yeah, doing some hands-on stuff.
Building things.
Building
Great
things.
fun. Great fun. What's the best career advice you've ever been given?
To go to marketing. So like, you're not that good of an engineer. You're not as good as you think you are. So it didn't happen that way, but one of my CEOs and we kind of like, we got acquired, and then I had a path to choose, right? Because I was running both product marketing and product management for that company, and I had to make a decision. And my CEO said that, okay, Ajay, if I were you, I would choose marketing. And that was like maybe like 20 years back, like 19 years back. So he pushed me, and I think that was the best thing that happened to me.
What book do you most often recommend?
Like there are a lot of leadership books out there, right? But then one kind of like becomes your favorite, or one you really model your management style after. So I have one personal book which really resonated with me. It is called The Leadership Challenge. It is by Barry Posner, who was dean of, he's still at Santa Clara University, but he was dean of Santa Clara University Business School, an amazing professor. And I think that book kind of like breaks down the whole leadership challenge into like 5 pieces, right? It is about like you model the way, you inspire a shared vision, you challenge the process and initiate changes, and then you enable others to act. And most importantly, kind of you care about people. So whenever I'm kind of like stuck with a situation, I try to break that situation down into these pieces. And more often than not, I will find a way forward. So that definitely helps me. So the leadership challenge.
What's the strangest job that you've ever done?
I would call it strange, but maybe people don't know because I was a mechanical engineer and I used to work for Honda Motors in India in the assembly line and manufacturing cars. The fact that when Honda came to India, the very first Honda car came from my assembly line, the very first one. So I was one of the team which kind of like launched the very first Honda car in India.
What make of car is this? Do you remember?
It was called, it was like a smaller version of Honda Civic. It was called Honda City. So that was popular in like India and Thailand and Philippines. So it was for that market. It's called Honda City. It's still there. And that was one of the big projects I had.
Well, you really weren't kidding when you say you make things. The very first Honda City car in India. There you go. Claim to fame. What are you most excited about for the second half of 2024?
I just had kind of like really exciting meetings with my kind of like leadership team here at Mezmo, as well as leadership team within marketing. So we are coming up with some great stuff around like telemetry data platform and like next generation of log analysis, log management. So we are working towards some of the really cool stuff, which we are about to launch in next few weeks, as well as leading up to KubeCon. So I have some really exciting stuff that we are working on, and I'm looking forward to those launches from Mezmo side.
So Ajay Khanna is the CMO of Mezmo, it's a telemetry company, as you just heard, with exciting things coming up. Ajay, thanks for your time today. Really enjoyed catching up with you and learning a little bit about how you've implemented ABM, not just at this company, but at others, including Reltio, which I know won that award. If people want to reach out to you, where should they go?
I mean, the best way is to connect me on LinkedIn. It is, LinkedIn/Ajay Khanna. So I was the early one, so I got the Ajay Khanna.
We have the canonical Ajay Khanna here.
Exactly. I'm proud of that. So it is easy to find me on LinkedIn. And no, definitely connect me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to kind of share if there are any more questions. But it was wonderful to participate in this session and have a conversation. It was fun.
Wonderful. Great. Thanks again for your time. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Well, that wraps it up for today. But two quick things before we go. First, we've just published our Startup Marketer Outlook, which is a report based on a survey of over 250 senior marketers, early and late stage startups, all about their plans for H2 2024. So please go to firebrand.marketing, and in the resources section, you'll be able to download your copy there. Second, if you've enjoyed the show, please give us a rating or a review. Obviously, subscribe. We really appreciate that, since that helps others discover the show. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. And in the meantime, get out there and crush your marketing goals.